Hey everybody, welcome to another Overwatch 2 patch notes. Sorry, I've not been doing too much Overwatch content recently. I wanted to cover some of the games. In fact, I have one intended to cover later on in the week, but I've got my finger in too many pies right now, and I'm moving house, and my fingers, they're sticky and burnt, okay? But I've got a bit of time to go through the Season 9 mid-season patch notes, and I think they're pretty minor, but in a weird way. The big changes are global changes for me. Firstly, the global projection size modifier for fast projectiles, has been reduced from 0.1 to 0.75 meters, sorry, not seconds, because there was an issue that if you were headshotting someone, the chest hitbox volume would overlap the head hitbox because the projectile sizes were so big, and it meant that headshots weren't registering as headshots, they were recognized as body shots. So they've decided to, put the projectile size down a little bit more, tighten it up, so that you're more likely to get headshots than body shots when you're hitting someone in the head. That is a good change. I approve. The second big one is this global DPS passive that was at 20% healing reduction. So if a damage-dealing hero deals damage to a hero, they receive 20% less healing, either from themselves or like an ally. That is now being toned down to 15%. This was a huge thing. It has really flipped the meta into a state that is really revolving around the DPS, namely Tracer, to be honest with you. I was very much expecting this hero was going to be changed in some way, probably via nerfs, as currently the meta is sort of Tracer, and then we'll build the team around Tracer. That's kind of how it's now settled, so... Anyway, the DPS passive has been reduced by 5%, and it's going to be good for all single-target healers. It's going to be good for Mercy. Now, I was just discussing with someone on the old Twitter that this is a +2 healing per second if the DPS passive is active on someone that you are healing. I know it's not a lot. It takes it from 44 to 46 point something. It's not a lot, but, it's a step in the right direction for these single target healers. Also, this is going to be good for Anna, Alari, Lifeweaver, Briggish. Because obviously she has AoE as well, but her actual little, her cookies that she gives out to people, they are going to be a little bit better now than they were before. So it'll be interesting to see where this settles. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference on the meta. The projectile size changes, I think, mattered a little bit more than the DPS one. But both together kind of created this monster that is Tracer right now. Anyway, the other big thing, again, I'm going to say this now, I don't think the hero changes is too big for the most part. This is a really nice quality of life change, though. There's now a new UI element above your own health bar to show what healing statuses are implied. The most important one is this reduced healing, that is the DPS passive. Because before, you had no idea that if you're taking, some damage, is that damage from the tank? Was it from the support? Am I receiving reduced healing? Am I not receiving reduced healing? Now you can tell, so if if you're falling over and dying and you're blaming your supports and you've got this reduced healing icon, yeah, good luck to you, because they're not going to be able to heal you out of it. Anyway, let's get to the actual heroes now. Doomfist. Now, just in case no one's been watching the OWCS, there's been some different ideas of what the meta is. Europe is very flexible right now, but in Korea, almost every team have been running Doom, Tracer, Echo, because then you can copy another Tracer, Kiri, and Lucio. That is the Korea special. Other teams, they see Korea doing this, they want to copy it, and this is, become probably the kind of meta comp. There are some slight variances on this. Some teams are running Junker Queen instead, with a slight variance on the twist. This allows you to put a Moira in here. And then some teams are doing the good old E Rush special, in which case you're running Ramatra instead. Definitely running the Moira, definitely running the Lucio, and you can mess about with this Echo a little bit more. You can throw in Reapers and that type of deal. So they're kind of the big meta teams out there. There is also one other one which is slightly It's more of a counter comp than anything else, which is a Zarya cast combo, where you can just keep bubbling your cast. Your cast is like great anti-dive, very good against the Doomfist. And anytime the Doomfist goes on the caster, you just bubble the caster, and he just obliterates the Doomfist. And then gives Zarya a charge to, go on and do her thing. This then is then flipped over. If you run like Winston into this, it seems like the counter to this, and you end up in Counter Watch. Anyway, that gives you an idea of where roughly the meta heroes are right now. So, surprisingly, Doomfist has been buffed. He is arguably the meta tank right now. I don't think it's quite as black and white as that. He's a very good dive tank, and realistically, the reason he's been played is because the other dive tanks can't live. D.Va can somewhat live, but Doomfist can get in there quickly, get out very quickly. He can block to protect himself from taking, 10 million damage from the DPS passive. Allows your support to heal you up while you're blocking, and then you can get out again. A lot of disruption on this hero as well. Very good copy for Echo, and Echo is pretty strong right now. So I think this is, to be fair to Doomfist, I think this is a reasonable change. So this is only affecting his ultimate. So his ultimate is a ring where it does more damage in the center than it does on the edges. It does less damage on the edges. They're now pulling up this edge damage to be more than 15. It's now going to be 50. And then I believe it scales inwards at the same rate. It's vaguely going to feel the same as it always does. I think what they're trying to do right now is most Doomfists will use their ultimate to reset their cooldowns, and they will even just Meteor Strike back into their team to heal up again. I think Overwatch doesn't want this to be the case. I don't think they mind people using their ultimate for positioning, but Doomfist, more than any hero in the game, uses their ultimate for positioning more than damage. I think they want to see Doomfist, going in there, being aggressive with it, being this really brawly, divey tank. So this will help him do that. It'll help him get more shields as well off his ultimate. I think this is a fine change. But as I said, he's very strong right now. That being said, he's probably strong right now because of the DPS passive and the particular DPS is that are being played. So I think it's a fair enough assessment to kind of wait and see. If you've just changed the DPS passive, let's see how things settle. And I think that is going to be true for a lot of the support changes as well. They seem to be trying to let the dust settle on changing the DPS passive again. Malga is one of the heroes that I think has got the biggest changes. So Malga had a big issue. His big issue is that his ability, Cardiac Overdrive, allows him to get lifesteal. And that's really good, right? However, since the DPS passive has been brought in, he was also tuned down from his original release where he was very strong. I will always maintain, though, I don't think he was the meta tank then. He was just a very easy tank to play and very strong in ladder play. His lifesteal is just brutalized by the DPS passive. He's also the biggest hero in the game. He's like the size of Gibraltar. And it makes it easy to apply the DPS passive to this guy. Now, two things are happening. Firstly, and let me go to the bottom of this, he gets a flat overhealth of 100 now when he uses Cardiac Overdrive. That is really big for this character because it won't be mitigated by the DPS passive, as it's overhealth, not health. So you'll get the full 100. Every time he pushes Cardiac Overdrive, he gets 100 temporary health. That's very good for survivability. Also pretty good on the old, if he gets antied or that type of thing, he's going to get a little bit more survivability. So I think this is an okay change. It's fine. Also, though, DPS passive being reduced makes Malga happier. He's even smilier than he normally is. You know what? I should have done it like this. Demonic smile. He's very happy now, as this means he's going to get more bang from his buck from the lifesteal. Anyway, now the other changes. This stomp damage increased by 15 is fine. Everyone gained more health. He didn't gain more stomp damage, so pulling this number up is fine. It's also pretty hard to actually get the full stomp damage off. You have to be pretty tight to the person you're jumping on. And you boot them away in the process, so it's like hard to land on them. I think this is fine. Plus 15 damage, that's not going to make a big difference. It's kind of a nothing change, but it's a decent change for Malga. Now, here's where things get a little bit interesting. The cooldown for Cardiac Overdrive, the duration first, has been reduced. So this doesn't last as long anymore, this super Cardiac Overdrive. It's 20% shorter than it was before. However, it comes up 18% faster. which is kind of like, it's not quite the same, obviously, and that's not the way this would work. You get the flat 100 change every 10 seconds. So I think this overall is a buff to Malga. Every 10 seconds, you're going to gain over health 100%. The other thing to note about Cardiac Overdrive, and one of the things that made this hero strong, and actually, even teams were still messing about with Malga on the previous patch, where you would say he's probably in his weakest. If you can walk out with, like, I don't know, like a Bastion or something with mega blasting damage, and you walked out and you push your Cardiac Overdrive, which, as a reminder, in case you don't know this, it's an AoE effect you give your allies this ability to get, is it 30% damage reduction and 60% lifesteal? It's something along those lines. If you do this with a Bastion or a Reaper, they're basically unkillable. So you being able to do this every 10 seconds for 4 seconds, instead of every 12 seconds for 5 seconds, mean you get this. If you look at it as like a power level curve, like power and time, before you would go zoom, 5 seconds would go, and then you would be garbage again. Now, I know this is not quite exactly what's going to happen. You're going to get this. It's going to rise, 4 seconds, fall. Then it's going to come back up again sooner, rise, fall. So instead of these big, long stints of being very powerful, and then these very, if I put this out more, you'd have a really wide trough. Instead of having these wide power levels and wide troughs, you have more frequent power levels and less long troughs, which I think feels more good to play as. So I think overall this is a good change. I think it's a buff overall to Malga, and I think it's going to feel good if you're playing Malga to have it like this. Is this going to be good enough to make him see play? I'm not convinced. He's still a large, chunky lad. Alright, Orisa. Orisa sometimes is seen play. I've seen it in some of the Korean games in Overwatch. Typical in teams like, I can't beat you on Doomfist. Eventually it ends up as, let's try to see what they do about Orisa. I feel like this is the benchmark hero. It's like, we'll play Orisa and see how you deal with it. And a lot of the teams that have been scrubbing this Doom comp are struggling with Orisa, right? Because Orisa is pretty good into Doomfist. You can cancel his power block, you can fortify so you don't get punched around by him, and you just have a lot of armor and a lot of health. They now have an improved Terror Surge. So for the first 2.5 seconds, the charge rate goes up by 25%. That's a pretty big change for Orisa, right? One of the criticisms of the ultimate is that you suck everyone in, so you have your whirling, spinning blade in an AoE. And what does 99% of the cast do? They just walk out. And if you cancel your ult early, you do not enough damage to get any kills, and basically you just provide your opponent for healing. So I think Orisa ult is pretty weak, let's put it that way. This is going to be a big thing, right? If you now Terror Surge on top of a enemy hero that is a little bit, maybe a little bit weaker, you're probably going to be able to kill confirm with your ultimate now. Almost guaranteed. Like, you're going to build up the damage fast enough that if this hero is on like 125 health or something, or there or thereabouts, they simply will not be able to escape unless they have a movement ability critically. So any small, waddly hero, say small, any low health waddly hero, Orisa is going to be a real menace towards. So I think this is a pretty big change for Orisa. Do I think it's going to make Orisa meta? No. Orisa, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, if you like Orisa, unfortunately, if you don't like Orisa, fortunately, I think this hero is really poorly designed. I don't think there's ever going to be a world where Orisa is meta, in a sense that I don't think there would be a competing comp with an Orisa comp. Orisa will only be meta if Orisa is OP, and there are no other comps that can beat it. She will just dominate people, and basically the way that's going to happen is that eventually at some point you're going to reach a DPS threshold that is just simply too high for the other tanks to deal with. You'll break through their shields, you'll use their resources too quickly, and then we'll get an Orisa meta. Yeah, that is just simply the case, I think. So I don't think we're at that point yet. I don't think this change matters enough. It's going to have to be something to do with the primary fire. Possibly if she can just run around and fortify into people and become an unkillable juggernaut, that would probably also see her become meta. But I think it's more likely her DPS gets so high, there's just nothing can shield through it. I think I've talked about before in the past why I don't like Orisa. I think she's very poorly designed, as a tank especially. And honestly, I think the previous iteration of Orisa was better than the current iteration of Orisa, with the minor exceptions of Fortify, which I think is obnoxious, and I don't know why they kept it, and Bongos, which I think was also a pretty bad ultimate, but I think Bongos could have been worked on. Anyway, enough Orisa bashing. Ramattra. Okay, Ramattra, pretty strong right now. Ravenous Vortex, damage increased from 45 to 70. Okay, this hero is pretty strong right now, and you've buffed him again. And the cooldown has been decreased from 12 to 11 seconds. You double buffed a hero that is very good. So I can definitely see these teams that like the Ram Rush, they are going to be big, happy, smiley, happy people. Ravenous Vortex is an extremely strong ability. I think people underestimate how good this slow is. And they've made it even better. It does more damage to your... If you get trapped in this, if like you're Lucio and you get ripped off the wall, you're fucked. You're going to die. It's just simply, you're dead. And this now comes up every 11 seconds instead of every 12 seconds. So sometimes your Ramattra might throw a Ravenous Vortex with everyone, and that would give you a small window opportunity to, you know, maneuver around him. Good luck now. You have one more second if it's going to come up. He's going to have Ravenous Vortex, he'll just run you down. So, yeah. Ramattra is going to be very, very good post-patch. Hero that wasn't good going into this patch, Reinhardt. Now, I theorized that Reinhardt would be pretty good on the Season 9 patch. It turned out to be very wrong. Reinhardt has been very, very sad. And it makes sense, right? Reinhardt is a hero designed for 6v6 Overwatch. Not even 6v6 Overwatch. He was designed in a world where heroes had no limits, right? You could have 3 tanks, you could have 4 tanks, you could have no supports, you could have 5 supports, you could have 6 soldiers. That's what Reinhardt was designed for, and every single iteration from Overwatch 2, he's always just felt like this kind of like lumbering kid. It's like, I want to get on that person and swing at them, but I've used my movement ability and he's gone to the high ground and I can't hit him anymore. So kind of Reinhardt just stands there and gets bullied. He's very good at shielding off an angle. He's very good in close quarters combat. Now, unfortunately for Reinhardt, not many maps cater to that type of play style, so Reinhardt sees very little play right now. He's gained 25 more armor or more ult charge for the opponent DPS players, and now his fire strikes do 120 damage up from 100. That probably matters on the breakpoint of some heroes, giving him another 20 damage on the fire strike. I'm struggling to think off the top of my head what the breakpoint is though for a 240 health. Probably DPS, right? Because 2 fire strikes would kill a Tracer anyway. It's hard to hit, but he would have done it. Then a lot of the other ones... Actually, there are a few. So yeah, it's going to affect the breakpoint. What is also pretty important about this is a back window, turning this into 240 damage, is going to be really brutal. Really, really brutal. So if you get cleaved by this, you're going to have a big sad time. Unfortunately, I think none of this addresses the big, you know, the big elephant in the room that Reinhardt can only move on one plane, like so. And once he moves on this one plane, he can't shoot anyone because he has a hammer. So all he can do is be a rectangle man and just stand there. Or you can do the Cloudy special and you can go sit in the hoose and try and block payload and force your opponent to break you out the hoose. Just, that is the Reinhardt world without another tank with you to help control the high ground and control other angles. Reinhardt's weakness is just... It's just magnified, right? And it doesn't really matter what you do to his health. It does matter to some degree with the fire strike. If you can get to the point where you just start, you know, one-shotting Tracers, then that would be pretty good for Reinhardt. But yeah, I don't think this change is going to make a blind bit of difference, especially since Ramattra was buffed in turn with him. And I think people have got to a point now where they're accepting that it typically, under, you know, no weird circumstances, Ram is normally the better brawl into Rein. You can punch through the Rein shield. You can block more damage than the shield realistically, in your block form. You can even refresh it on the ultimate as well, which gives you some more health as well. He's just got unbelievable survivability, and he can poke you from range. The only really situation where like this flips the other way is on the ultimate. Ryan can quite easily shatter Ramattra, but that's about it, right? Anyway, Roadhogging time. This actually may be a pretty big change. I've not checked this in the practice range yet. So they've changed the positioning on Chainhook again. They keep messing with this number. So Roadhog used to pull enemies 4 meters away from him. And then, you try and walk forward and fire from there. The further away the enemy was from you, the less pellets hit your opponent, therefore like the less damage you would do. Now they've changed his gun since then. It's no longer the left click, right click when this was originally changed from 3 to 4. It's now just a single click with a big burst in the center and some pellets on the outside. That being said, the pellets on the outside probably were not hitting particularly well at 4 meters. At 3 meters though, with a pig pen, that might be a lot of damage. That might bring back the Roadhog one-shot. And Roadhog could basically never be meta without the one-shot, otherwise he is not a threat. Because Roadhog isn't really a tank. He's kind of... Okay, you might laugh at me. I don't think he's ever really been truly a tank. I think he's been a support in disguise as a tank. Why do I say he's a support? Well, I feel like the pull is more of a support-like ability. It's more like utility to dislodge someone from a certain position. I don't think it really fits in with the DPS classic, right? But supports have stuns, right? They have things that disrupt as well. I think Roadhog honestly could have fit into the support role. But anyway, this is another insane take. At the very least, though, he's now got his threat back of potentially the one-shot. I assume this is going to be a more realistic one-shot now, especially with the pig pen. Which means you have to respect Roadhog where he's on the map. You have to play scared. You have to play around corners. And that's going to cause mispositioning errors that your other teammates can take advantage of. And that is effectively how Roadhog creates space. He's just a threat that at any moment he could one-shot you. Also, pig pen. Vertical knockback on activation decreased by 43%. It's going to take some getting used to for you hog mains, but it probably means the hook one-shot combo is very consistent now. Do I think this is going to make a blind bit of difference to hog? Absolutely not. This is just completely irrelevant. On ladder, this is probably going to be insane. In terms of like high-level pro play, it just doesn't matter. Like, hog is just so punishable. He's very hurt by the DPS passive. I know the DPS passive is also going down a little bit for him, so again, that's another like stealth buff to Roadhog's healing. But if you really want to, if you concertedly run as 5 people and just rush down the Roadhog, he can't really do anything, right? He hasn't got any mobility cooldowns. He is very susceptible to stuff like, Suzus. He's susceptible to anti, to sleep, to just Lucio running him down, as I said, because he can't escape. So yeah, I think, again, this is just an artifact of Roadhog being designed for original Overwatch 1. This tank is always going to struggle to be better in Overwatch 2, and the only way he will become meta is kind of like the way he was at the end of Overwatch 1, where we briefly had a Roadhog Zarya meta. This hero will just do so much damage that other tanks can't tank the damage anymore, and they'll just run out of resources. And then we'll get a Roadhog meta. Anyway, to the damage heroes. Surely Trace is going to be in here, by the way, right? We have the most whiffy, washy change ever. Hanzo's projectile size has been increased from 0.75 to 0.1 meters. The total projection size, when combined with the general hero change, is still 0.175 meters. So the Hanzo change does absolutely nothing. It's the same as it was before. What it does do, if you compare it to all the other fast projectile heroes, is he retains his logs, whereas everyone else is like, they've been tightened up a little bit. It doesn't matter. This won't change Hanzo's quality in pro play. Again, another hero that is very susceptible to just being jumped on and destroyed. The only way Hanzo is really ever good is when he just does one-shots, headshots you across the map, gets a magic pick. He can't do that right now because he doesn't have the damage threshold to one-shot most heroes. Therefore, Hanzo will be in a bad spot. May. Endothermic Blaster. Ammo increased from 120 to 140. And Cryo Freeze. She heals from 50 health per second to 62.5 health per second. Who cares? that's the change for Mei. Who cares about this? This is just so irrelevant. The ammo change is nice. It gives you a bit more of a primary fire, you know, just spray him down. The cryo freeze change is just so irrelevant. Like, has anyone ever felt like, oh, I really wish I could heal a bit faster in cryo freeze? It's very few and far between. I guess you could get to a point where it would be so fast that you could kind of flash the ability to full heal. As long as it never gets to that point, this change is so minor. If you cryo freeze out of position, you're still going to be out of position, even with the ability to cancel it slightly faster because you're healing for more. The thing that really hurts Mei is that her icicles on her alt fire don't two-shot anymore. They don't do that. If they did, then Mei would actually be pretty strong right now. You'd probably have Mei in your rush comps, which she currently isn't really seen play in any of the rush comps. The wall's still nice, don't get me wrong. I do think some teams will probably still try to run Mei rush anyway. But in general, I think this hero, I think she's just bad without the threat of the right clicks. The right click sniping shots, it went across a threshold that Mei is just not good enough for. Anyway, hero that may be good enough now, Reaper. Reaper's a very interesting one. His Death Blossom has had a damage increase from 170 to 185 per second. That makes sense because every hero gained, you know, a health pool increase. And most heroes who had like a damage over time ability, they had that dot buffed in line with all the heroes getting more health. Reaper didn't. Also important to note about this, I don't know if people are aware of how Reaper's ult actually functions. He doesn't fire bullets, so to speak, so the projectile size changes didn't actually affect Death Blossom at all. It is literally just like a semicircle or hemisphere around Reaper. And if you're in that hemisphere, you take this damage per second. And that's that, right? And I think it comes out like as burst from him. But it's not actual bullets. The projectile size changes didn't affect this. So you can stand in here and deflect it, and you will deflect it. But that's the deal of this ultimate. Also importantly, the ult cost has gone down by 12%. And I'd say Death Blossom on Reaper, that built pretty quickly. I don't think it was a very slow ult. It's actually kind of a nice concept. I've always thought this would be a really cool thing to do. There are simply some ultimates that aren't that good, and realistically won't ever be that good. I'd put Death Blossom in that category where the ultimate is fine, but against certain comps, it is literally cosmetic. And funnily enough, I've been watching some of the Space Station Gaming matches where they have been running Reaper in their kind of hybrid dive comp. And against Lucio, Kiri, Tracer, Echo, Doomfist, this ultimate is just purely cosmetic. Like, how do you kill anything with that? The Doom punches you, cancels it. The Kiri cleanses it and walks out. That's it. She fades away, good going. Tracer recalls, blinks away, oh, good going, that's cosmetic. Lucio boops you, hyper cosmetic. Echo flies away, you get the deal now. Or even just copies the Reaper. Yeah, just completely cosmetic ultimate into certain comps. So I like the idea of that these ults that maybe are slightly underwhelming, why not make them build faster? We don't need to homogenize all these ults coming up at the same time. Have weak ultimates that build faster. Have super strong ultimates that build slower. I think that is a good thing to have. And I like that they changed this, so I think this is a positive change overall for Reaper. Do I think Reaper is exactly going to be meta? I think it depends. I think in Western teams, you could legitimately see a Reaper meta. I could see a Ramattra, Reaper, Moira, Lucio, Tracer meta, because Tracer's just insane. So yeah, I think this actually might be a change that sees Reaper see a little bit more play. In Korea, where they don't love the rush, or even in the Japanese Overwatch Champion Series, if you've been watching that, I don't think this is going to cause Reaper to suddenly become meta. Alright, Sombra. Ever since she was reworked, she's basically been awful. She feels really clunky. The virus hasn't really been that useful. The hacks haven't been that useful. The translocator just allows you to get chased down and murdered. And these changes don't do anything. So virus has got its impact damage increased from 10 to 25. Now, this is actually pretty important to note. If the target is hacked, Virus, which I think does 100 damage, right, in total, it deals that 100 damage twice as fast if they're hacked. So instead of doing 100 damage over, I think it's 4 seconds, it does over 2 seconds instead. What you may not realize as well is it does, or used to do, 10 impact damage. And if the target was hacked, it would do 20 instead. Like, it does additional damage. So this is actually a pretty big thing, because if the target is hacked when you do the virus, it will do 50 damage, which I think means in total, you're looking at just one-shotting heroes now if you hack virus them, which is really scary. It requires communication and teamwork. So if you're on the ladder, this change is horrible. You're going to hate this. It's going to make your day miserable if you didn't like Sombra before. She's going to be invisible in your backline, and she's going to hack you, virus you, and you're going to die. Because your other support will be in their backline. Your Moira will fade into their backline and will be fighting with their team. So, yeah, enjoy this. At pro level play, this is pretty minor. Again, it's a pretty nice damage buff. It's going to mean your ult builds faster. Spoiler, your ult will build faster anyway. But it doesn't really change the issue with Sombra. Also, this change is just a quality of life thing. Your translocator breaks breakable, so if you're like, if you're booped off the edge and you throw your translocator and it hits like a fence and falls into the abyss, it will now go through the fence so that you can actually maybe live for a microsecond longer. The problem with Sombra is, though, right now, and especially in the current meta where Tracer is very, very strong, is if anyone sees you translocate and you try to be in their backline and you throw the translocator, off onto a flank, you will be hunted down by Tracer, by Doomfist, by Ball, and you will be killed. The cooldown of this is too long to escape from Tracer, D.Va, Doom, Ball, and you will just die in pro play. They will call it and say they translocated onto the Mega, let's go murder the Sombra, and then we'll come back and kill the other 4 guys later. So this literally doesn't do anything. It honestly, it buffs the most obnoxious parts of a kit. So I think this change overall, obviously there's a buff to Sombra, but I think it's really, really bad for the game in general. And the final thing I alluded to is that the EMP is building up 8% faster. That's actually a pretty big deal. I think the best way to play Sombra right now is you actually just hang around your tank and you kind of frontline with Sombra and just try and build EMPs as fast as possible. Because EMP is probably one of the, the numero uno ultimates in the game. It is really strong because it applies the DPS passive, it is an AoE, and it does a flat percentage damage, so the health changes didn't really affect EMP as much as some of the other abilities. So, yeah, I think Sombra is going to be stronger. Do I think she's going to be meta? Probably not. However, maybe if you just hang around your tank, maybe you hang around with your Jungle Queen, hell, maybe you hang around with your Mauga, and you start getting these cardiac overdrives as well to make it even less likely you get killed. If you get poked out of the front line, you just translocate to your back line, get health, go invisible, cheat your way back into the front line. I think that's going to be the gimmick of Sombra. Obviously, there's then going to be those people that still play it as old Sombra where you assassinate people in the back line. As long as you communicate with your teammate, that is fine. You will still be able to kill the Sombra. She's still punishable. Symmetra is in the trash can tier right now. She basically didn't get any changes, I think. You might tell me if I'm wrong, but did she get... What is this? That's a trash can. I don't think she got any changes going into Season 9. I could be wrong. Maybe they changed her damage on her right-click slightly. But I believe this was one of the big projectiles, so the projectile size change didn't affect it. So she just got a flat health increase, I think. Maybe that was it. She just got a flat health increase. Anyway, she's pretty garbage because the whole reason that Symmetra was reasonably good in Rush or on certain maps where Rush was good and you could have a close fight with a choke in it, which is what Symmetra loves to do, is that her right clicks, they really fucking hurt. I think a fully charged one is 120 damage. So used to 2-shot squishy heroes. With the health increases and not the damage increase on the right click, I think now for most DPS heroes, she 3-shots instead on right clicks. And that's actually a really huge thing. As obviously, if a hero is transitioning from making a rotation, you killing them in 2 shots, that's reasonable, right? In the time it takes to rotate. 3 shots, not reasonable, especially with Lucio's speed. You're not realistically going to get these kills. The other thing was that her primary fire, again, wasn't adjusted with everyone's heroes gaining more health, sorry. So it was all well and good, these scaling stages, but the fight or the scaling took so long that fights were normally over before you could reach the final stage, and you weren't doing as much percentage damage to the hero anyway while you were doing the scaling because they had more health. Anyway, this changes to address that. So the primary fire damage has gone up from 60 to 65 at base. And then it scales up to 195, keeping the same scaling intervals as it once did before. And I believe the same scaling timing as it did before. This is a positive change for Symmetra primary fire. It's irrelevant, though, in the entire concept of the game. It's still too slow. For Rush, the fight will just be over by the time you get to third stage, for the most part. So I think this really doesn't do anything for Symmetra. What might do a little bit of difference, though, is the sentry turrets themselves. These guys have gained 20 health from nowhere in a change that I don't think anyone was asking for. That's a pretty big breakpoint change from 30 to 50, as quick melee is at 45, right? So you can't just quick melee one of these things. You have to melee and shoot it now. That's really annoying. I hate this change. Please set it to 45 at the very least so you can punch them. And their DPS has gone up from 25 to 30. You had 3 of these, so you're kind of getting like another 15 damage per second if they were all in one place. And normally when you see Symmetra, you're seeing it in one of these closed control points, like Night Market, like Village. I still think she's going to be decent on those maps. I don't think this is something going to make her, you have to pick her on those maps. But, you know, the steps in the right direction, I suppose, for Symmetra to address the health pool increases. But as I said, I really don't like this one. Please don't put it above quick melee. That's annoying. Finally, her teleporter is getting a big health increase. It used to be 200 health in total. Split between health and shields is 50 and 150. It's now going to be 100 and 200. That's a huge difference because you used to be able to, like, you know, you'd see the sim TPing and you could break the TP before everyone got through it. This is going to increase the likelihood that you're going to get your entire team through it. This change on the ladder is going to be very nice. In pro play, I think it's going to be fairly minor, as I still think 300 damage in, you know, whatever time frame it was in, is going to be doable versus 200. Like, it's surprising if 5 people shoot at the same target, and typically, you know, in high level competitive settings, you're kind of coordinated. You're probably going to still be able to do 300 damage in half a second even, as the TP comes through. The other slight issue with the TP, of course, is that when someone TPs through it, and you TP your entire team through it, everyone knows where you are. You're all come together, and suddenly that is the go time to shoot everything at them. So, yeah, Symmetra on maps where she's going to be good is going to be very slightly better, but I don't think it's going to make a big difference. A change I think is going to make a surprising difference is this change for Torbjorn. His turret is going to do 13 damage up from 11. It's just a flat good thing for Torbjorn, and what I like about this the most is the character this turret really annoys the most. Probably is Tracer. Only she's up there for people it annoys the most. She doesn't want to get close to the turret to shoot it. She'd rather be on the back line. It also gives you a good idea. It's like, heads up, the Tracer's over there shooting the turret. So yeah, it's really obnoxious to play as Tracer into this. And if you try to go on the back line and you ignore the turret, it's now going to chunk you down for 13 per shot instead of 11 per shot. And big number means more sadness for Tracer. So I don't know if this, and by the way, you may have noticed now we're at the end of the DPS notes, they didn't change Tracer, the strongest hero in the game right now, and literally is causing the meta to revolve around her. So much so that people playing Echo to copy enemy Tracers to run 2 Tracers. They've decided this 2 damage change to the turret from Torbjorn is going to handle the Tracer issue. I think that is the game plan here. Will it? Probably not, because all you need to do then is say, you know, as a Tracer, hey, Echo, can you just shoot this turret, please? Because you're really good at killing the top turret. And in pro play, the Echo player is going to be like, sure, that seems completely reasonable. Now, on the ladder, obviously you're not going to have an Echo, you're going to have a Junkrat. And the Junkrat's like, no, I'm too busy setting up mines, double mine into their backline, and then riptide it in their backline. So, yeah, good luck on ladder. In competitive play, I think it's going to be pretty minor. Though we did see some of the EU teams actually playing Torbjorn as an anti-dive answer. So I don't think Torbjorn is actually a million miles away from being playable, especially in a dive meta. We are in somewhat of a dive meta right now, so watch the space on Torbjorn. Anyway, now we get to the supports, and the supports, they've been very conservative with most of the changes, I think. Anna's nade now does 90 damage up from 60, pretty big deal. Problem for Ana, the DPS passive hurts her single target healing, i.e. her primary fire, more than other supports in the game. Now, DPS passive is only going to be 15%, so actually Ana got 2 buffs. Not only did she get this, she also now will heal more on her single primary fire. So this, all in all, is a good change for Ana. Do I think this is something going to make Ana meta? Maybe-ish. Some people have been running really greedy comps where they run like Ana Zen on Blizzard World. And this has a lot of damage in it. It has a lot of utility in it from the Ana nades and the sleeps. And the Ana Nano is very useful both as a defensive and an offensive tool. So I see this as like a super greedy comp. The downside of this is like both these heroes have no mobility. So if you get onto them with like, you know, a D.Va or a Doom, and you have to play very careful with the Doom, because obviously if you just get slept, these enemies going to one-shot you. But if you're playing this as D.Va and just speed boost onto this backline, they are going to fall down and have a little cry. And that's going to still be true now. But yeah, the Biotic Nade is nice. I think they mentioned in a previous blog post that they were doing this more for the self-sustained damage, self-sustained healing from Ana, because Ana can't really heal herself other than the nade. If you nade yourself, you're going to get a flat 90 health now, unless you have the DPS passive on you, in which case you're going to take 15% less than 90. And if I was good at maths, I would quickly work that out right now. It's like 13.5, right? 13.5 from this. So it's 76.5, I think. Quick maths. I could be wrong on this. Don't quote me. That's a pretty nice chunk of health to give yourself. And you'll give yourself the heal boosted status, or whatever they're calling it right now. And hopefully other support can help you. So I think all in all, this is a good change for Ana. I don't think she's going to suddenly become OP meta. But I think she's going to be decent. Brigitte. She has her cost of rally reduced, and her cooldown of repair pack has been reduced from 6 to 5. Irrelevant, doesn't matter. The problem with Brigitte right now is that she used to be able to survive DPS heroes, namely Tracer, fighting her, and now she can't. If she gets the DPS passive applied to her, she can't live through it. Now the DPS passive, again, has been changed, so maybe now the numbers flip and Brig can stay alive versus Tracer more reasonably. But if this is not the case, and this is going to take, I guess, a little bit of playing the game to figure it out, and I don't think, by the way, just my gut feeling is this won't make a difference. If Tracer is favoured in the matchup of Tracer versus Brigitte, the hero that was designed to be a counter to Tracer, then this hero just won't see play full stop. Also doesn't help that right now Lucio kind of does what Brig does, but better. Also provides some speed, very good AoE healing. One thing you would say about Brig over Lucio was that the flail whip was very good for disrupting dive, possibly better than the boop. The boop now has been brought in line with the flail, so now the boop does actually a pretty big knockback and can disrupt a dive. The other thing about Brig was she used to be able to one-shot combo a Tracer. She can't do that either, so this is part of the good reason why I think Brig doesn't beat the Tracer still. I think the Tracer beats the Brig every time. If they ever change her damage numbers so that she can one-shot combo a Tracer again with the shield bash, flail, whip shot, cancel, then she will become playable again. She'll be a counter to Tracer. This won't do it. This won't be it. And actually, if in fact, there is this really perverse world where sometimes when Brig is very strong or is meta, Tracer is also meta because Brig synergizes very well with Tracer. And if your Tracer has a repair pack and the enemy Tracer doesn't, your Tracer will win the 1v1. So she both kind of counters and enables Tracer. So it might even be a situation where Brig gets to a point where, perversely, she beats Tracer in the 1v1, but then you have to run her with a Tracer so that you can beat the enemy Tracer, who will just fight one another instead, and then they'll deal with you later. I know, complicated, right? Alright, here's what I think is going to actually make a very, very, very small difference. Illari. Her primary fire recovery time has been reduced from 0.3 to 0.2 seconds. The maximum charge time, I think this is the number to get it back to, a firing full damage state, has been reduced from 0.7 to 0.65. The difference I think this is going to make, by the way, is 0 to her playability. That's the big difference, right? If you put two zeros together, that's almost infinity. Yeah? Illari's problem, Illari has many problems. One of them is that her ultimate is pretty garbage in terms of quality compared to other support ultimates. Would you prefer the Sunburst, or whatever it's called, or would you prefer Transcendence? Would you prefer a Beat? Would you prefer a Rally? Yeah, you'd probably prefer a lot of those things. Even the Tree of Life you'd probably prefer from Lifeweaver to her ult. It's pretty rare that the support ult that is more proactive and aggressive is good. Now, Nano is kind of like the one exception to this, but you have to bear in mind that Nano gives you a damage reduction as well, so you can use it both defensively and offensively. Illari ult, you can only use it offensively, so you kind of need a support ult with it that can provide a little bit of defensive utility, unless you're just going to go insane and just snipe people down. And I think that is the only playstyle that will ever work with Illari. We'll only ever get Illari metas when Illari can just sit there sniping people from the backline, and she'll kill you on the approach. And if any hero gets on top of her, other weakness for Illari, her movement isn't that great. She has got some knockback, she has got some movement. It's not super good. If you get on this character, she's kind of screwed, right? Also, the big healing thing for her is her own pylon. If your Tracer gets into the backline, kills the pylon, Illari suddenly becomes like the most dieable target in the history of Overwatch. So these things that let her fire faster, do more damage, is probably more in keeping with what the character is intended to do. But I think the intention of what the character is intended to do is really not good in the 2v2v1 Overwatch we have right now with the roll lock, basically. So, sorry, Illari. Sorry. And then finally, Lifeweaver. Lifeweaver, maximum heal amount increased from 70 to 80. The charge time, though, has also been increased from 1 to 1.5, so you can get to a large amount. It takes you 0.15 seconds faster to get there. This is a buff. However, Lifeweaver is awful right now. Probably one of the worst supports in the game. I actually think Illari is worse than Lifeweaver. By the way, Illari is also hurt a lot by the DPS passive, and I don't think the 5% is going to make a big difference to her. Equally, Lifeweaver is really hurt by the DPS passive. He's a big burst single target healer, so you don't want to have like 15% health knocked off this thing, because then it's in a really bad state right now. This change is positive for him, but I think it's pretty minor, right? Rather than walking around holding like a 70 health orb in hand, which I think at the pro level you're probably not doing, right? For the most part, you're trying to, as soon as it charges, you send it out there, other than before a fight begins. Are you going to be holding it that 0.15 seconds longer for the extra 10 health? Probably, yeah. But it's still super minor when you bear in mind the 15% damage, the healing reduction. I just don't think this makes a difference to Lifeweaver. And then the other issues with Lifeweaver is I just don't think his utility provides enough value to your team compared to something like a Lucio or a Zen Discord, that type of deal. Anyway, they are the patch notes of, and I just want to go back to this again, and I don't blame them for this. I think they had to be very careful as the support changes, because I have already seen that people are tweeting out like, how have you left Mercy as she is? Mercy right now is really in the doldrums, but you have to be so careful if you're changing the DPS passive, which was kind of brought in because supports could just like, it was seen that supports could make people just invulnerable from a DPS hero, right? If they started healing one another, you just couldn't kill them as the DPS. So they tried to flip the matchup so the DPS could kill the support. It would just take slightly longer than normal, right? Like, they just couldn't do this forever, this backwards and forwards healing. Eventually, they will die now. There is absolutely no point in taking this passive down, and at the same time, boosting single target healing, because you're going to hit a point where you were where you were before the Season 9 started, so the changes will just be irrelevant. They have to be a little bit more subtle in the way they do it. So I know, and I mentioned this, that Mercy, in theory, the DPS passive changes, is getting another 2 health per second. It might be a fine number like that eventually that settles this for the hero. Personally, I think Mercy is actually going to need a soft rework. I think a kit is too basic and just it's too much revolved around this single target healing, that the DPS passive is always going to hurt her more than other heroes in the game. And I will include there are other heroes in this category, including Lifeweaver, by the way, who I think this hurts more than other ones, like Lucio, for example, or Moira even. I think you need to do something that rewards what is fun and more interactive about the kit of Mercy than just cranking the numbers up, because there will become a point where obviously Mercy will be very strong if you just keep cranking the numbers up, and it's going to be somewhere where her healing per second was after the DPS passive is applied, before the DPS passive became a thing, if you know what I mean. So it'll be somewhere around, like, was it 60 health per second the last time she was meta? Maybe it was 65 health per second, I don't remember exactly. I know Mercy's not been meta for a long time. But yeah, it'll be around that number, that after the DPS applied, if you're healing at that amount, then Mercy will definitely be very playable. But as I said, personally, I think they should do something that rewards her moving around the map and healing many people. I think that'd be a really nice change. Even if it was just something like for half a second she heals for something ludicrous. I don't know what the number is. I'm just going to pull a number out my ass. Let's say she just heals for 120 health per second for half a second, so it's like, you know, a quick 60 health gain. As long as she's Guardian Angel to a different target, and maybe it charges during the Guardian Angel, that type of thing. She just needs something that makes her decide, do I stay with this target or do I move to the other target? If I move to the other target, I'm more likely to be killed, but I have this big payoff that I can just suddenly bump heal this person up. What we don't want from Mercy, and I think this is the danger again with this character, is there to be a big wall here. Your sniper is shooting people from around the corner, and your Mercy is just blue beaming them and just stood here having a grand old day. That is not fun, that is not interactive, that's boring for the Mercy player, it's boring for this team. The only person who enjoys this is this guy, who gets to play point-and-click adventure game. So yeah, I think she needs a little bit more, and there's a few other heroes like this that I think that kit is a little bit too simple, and could do with like a little soft rework just to make the hero have a little bit more decision making in how you use your abilities and the orders you use the abilities in. Anyway, that's the patch notes. I don't want to go into a big detail about reworks of characters. Let me know what you think about it below. And yeah, I'll try and cover a little bit more Overwatch going forwards. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time. Bye.